All right, welcome to another of our courses in the Lunch and Learn Cyber Essentials series. Today's course will be on command line interface scanners or CLI scanners. The purpose behind these tools is really for you to use them during the reconnaissance phase or information gathering phase of maybe a penetration test or a CTF or a challenge where you're trying to understand your target. And so this is really where we dive into what reconnaissance is, enumeration and fingerprinting, the tools that are going to be available for you, and then ultimately what all of those tools are for. So the process of information gathering is always coupled with both manual and automated processes. Most CLI scanners are automated scanning tools. However, it's important to point out that automated scanning or scanning with a CLI scanner or utility is by no means a replacement for manual verification or validation. A practice that we impress upon everyone is if you use an automated scanner to identify and fingerprint a target, you should then as well go back and use manual verification to validate that everything found by those scanners is accurate. So there are many different scanners and utilities available in Kali Linux. And furthermore, there are tools on GitHub. Most CLI scanners, or the most common CLI scanners that are used, are Nmap's scripting engine and Nmap, Nicktube, WPScan, GoBuster and WFuzz. Now, GoBuster and WFuzz, some could say are not specifically CLI scanners. They're fuzzing utilities or subdirectory and directory brute forcing utilities. I agree with them. However, they are scanning for or fuzzing for information that is on a remote target or potentially a target machine. So you can use Cyclists as part of those, and then another scanner, which is more specific to databases, is SQL Map. So Nmap scripting engine, or NSE, we covered in the Cyber Essentials course for Nmap. So please go back if you have not watched that course video from the Cyber Essentials series. Go back and watch it. We cover a lot of information there. There is an Nmap book that can help you understand the Nmap scripting engine more. However, what NSE does is it allows for you, the user, or you, the penetration tester, or you, fill in the blank, individual, to write simple scripts that will automate different types of tasks for you. It is typically done in combination with a port scan. So if you're doing a port scan with Nmap and you're leveraging the Nmap scripting engine for different aspects of enumeration, that's where NSE will come into play. And those scripts really can run or not run depending on the different types of ports or port information that is found. So the scripts, as they are defined in NSE, belong to one of these four categories: a discovery, script fuzzer, version or vulnerability, and then brute. So all of those provide different options as you work with Nmap and NSE. Moving along, there is Nicktube. Nicktube is an old tool developed in Perl, primarily used for web server scanning or web server fingerprinting. This utility helps from the command line for you to identify different types of server and associated web application software misconfigurations. It'll also look for default files and programs, any insecure files that may be indexed. Also, if the remote web server is out of date or is running out of date programs. It'll fingerprint that for you. And again, this is a utility that goes through and iterates through a whole bunch of common either files, insecure files, web server misconfigurations, outdated servers. It's a loud process, right? So if you run Nicktube in the web application server logs, you will find Nicktube being run. So from a defender's perspective, right, you can identify Nicktube scans occurring. However, what you need to do, right, this is what you need to keep in the back of your mind. Anytime you use an automated scanner, make sure that you then bridge that with manual testing or manual verification, because Nicktube is prone to false positives with many of the different types of applications, web applications that are used today. Again, like I said, it was developed a while ago. It has been under some maintenance, but ultimately, whenever you use a CLI scanner, you want to also manually verify and test the findings. Another CLI-based scanner or tool is WPScan. WPScan stands for the WordPress Security Scanner. This is primarily built around scanning for websites that are built on WordPress. WordPress is a CMS software, makes web application deployment easier. And so what can you do with WPScan, or what can it check for? Well, it can check for any associated vulnerabilities with the WordPress version that is installed. It can also look for vulnerabilities in many different themes and plugins. Furthermore, you can do user enumeration with it. And you can leverage WPScan to do some additional or more complex either fingerprinting methods as well as exploitation methods. WPScan is a powerful tool to use if you're targeting websites built off of WordPress. However, it is very narrow in so much that you can only use it where its only benefit that it's going to provide you is on WordPress-based web applications. So continuing down the road of web application scanning or web application-based scanning CLI tools, we also have GoBuster and WFuzz. Before I mentioned that some people will not consider GoBuster and WFuzz as scanning tools, right? They're more of fuzzers and brute forcers, which is very true. However, when you go through a brute forcing process or you go through a fuzzing process, you do have to identify additional information either in subdirectories or in different types of parameters. And these are where these tools really facilitate that scanning piece. So GoBuster can do subdomain enumeration. It can look for virtual names on target web servers. It can also be used against open Amazon S3 buckets. Again, directories and files, those URIs, can be used as a brute forcer for. So if you use GoBuster in conjunction with Cyclists, you can find maybe some hidden paths, or you can find some aspects of a web application that haven't been indexed by a search engine like Google. And so with WFuzz, right, if you're in a web application assessment or you're doing web application security testing, the WFuzz is a web fuzzing framework that can automate certain aspects of those engagements. As well, you can use WFuzz to look at or brute force different types of directories. I'll give you an example here of how WFuzz is used for that, but also if, let's say you've identified a parameter manipulation vulnerability on a web application, you could use WFuzz to iterate through all the different types of parameters you might want to do a benchmark against how the application you're targeting responds. So in talking about GoBuster and WFuzz, I mentioned Cyclists. I think it's important to call out what Cyclists is here. Cyclists, or security list, is really a security tester, bug bounty hunter, pen tester, whomever's companion, in so much that it is a big aggregation of different types of lists that can be used, either usernames and passwords or URLs. Also information around sensitive data parameters or sensitive data patterns. WPScan or Cyclists can also include those different directories in web applications. It's a really good and great project to use in conjunction with tools like GoBuster and WFuzz. So SQLMap. So SQLMap is a database taking over a tool. It can be used for different types of SQL, NoSQL, MS SQL, different types of injection attacks. It has a detection engine for Oracle, Postgres, Microsoft SQL, MySQL. You can use SQLMap in database fingerprinting as well as database exploitation. So when you are or have identified a particular type of SQL injection vulnerability, you can use and leverage SQLMap to automate some of the different types of tasks you might do instead of having to go through doing SQL injection manually. And what's really great about it is not only can it do database exploitation and data fetching through SQL injection, but it can also execute commands on the underlying system for post-exploitation measures. So SQLMap can become very useful as you're targeting different types of databases. So this is really just a quick overview of the different types of command line interface scanners. It was not an exhaustive list. I'm sure if you have any familiarity with offensive security and open source tools, there may be a command line interface scanner that you know and you use day to day that wasn't listed here. Obviously, the purpose of this and the purpose of the Cyber Essentials modules is to give people a quick introduction to some of these tools so then they can go out and look into them, read the documentation on them, use them maybe during some of their own labs or as they're investigating how to get into and break into maybe the offensive security side of things. None of these tools, and I think I've hit on this multiple times, is a turnkey solution, right? You always want to use automated scanning methods with manual verification processes, right? Sometimes CLI scanners are prone to false positives or even false negatives. So always validating the information you're seeing and the information that's being presented is good. One of the things that we have talked about in prior Cyber Essentials videos, and something to really key in on here, is that having a knowledge and an understanding of the underlying vulnerabilities or misconfigurations issues is going to provide you with more value than any tool. Tools are used to augment work. So all of these CLI scanners, all the different utilities and tools that we have reviewed in past Cyber Essentials series and even in this one, these automate and augment work that you might otherwise do manually. So knowing what utility and knowing what tool you want to use to accomplish a particular task is going to help if you know the underlying vulnerability and misconfiguration issue that you're targeting. So thank you so much for joining us in this Cybersecurity Essentials video. Hopefully some very valuable information was learned. If there are any questions, go ahead and reach out to us and let us know at cyberrange@techdata.com. And we hope you're enjoying the series.